Good Sunday morning to you. Roger Hill of Weathering Heights, Velco Weather Hazards Forecaster, Radio Vermont Forecaster. This weather video is driven by 802cars.com, representing 802 Toyota, Twin City Subaru, and 802 Honda. They're all located off of Exit 7 on Interstate 89. No changes from earlier this morning. The bottom line takeaway for utilities in the state of Vermont, we could see some gusts 35 to 45 miles per hour across the western slopes of perhaps the central greens, but more located, I think, in Bennington and Windham County, but mostly on the Bennington side, the western slopes of the southern Green Mountains. And I'm expecting minor to low impacts from wind. Possible uprooting of larger deciduous trees are in the mix as well, and those areas that will receive some moderate rainfall. And most of that's going to be on the eastern slopes of the southern Green Mountains and adjacent areas. Some of that's going to carry over. But the heaviest rains, however, look to be, at least for the first part of the storm, basically on those eastern slopes, southeastern slopes of the Green Mountains. And this is going to be due to moderate rainfall leading up to and in conjunction with the rainfall bands associated with Henri. Rainfall across the southern one half of Vermont, the primary story, Monday into Monday night. And it's with a longer duration rainfall, which may include a few embedded thunderstorms again across the southern one half of the state. Impacts from flooding of headwaters in streams and perhaps a few tributaries are in the mix as well, and from the main stem rivers. This mostly toward Otter Creek, which looks like it may get into a little bit of flooding in center Rutland as it looks right now. But for the most part, we're looking at a soaking rain on top of the previous soaking rain associated with Fred, and antecedent conditions are such that things are very, very moist and saturated with the ground. Talking about Henri, as we're looking right now, it's going to be making landfall fairly shortly here, taking a track that will take it into a little bit west of Narragansett Bay. And then what ends up happening is it makes a pretty sharp left turn. It might even already starting to be making that left turn and then kind of do this kind of thing over the Catskills and either sort of exit out across Vermont or basically a little south of the Massachusetts-Vermont line and into Massachusetts, cutting across New Hampshire. Some of the computer models have been having this loop like this over the Albany area and then work up across the state of Vermont. National Hurricane Center track basically takes it almost due north or maybe cuts it just a little bit to the northwest and then takes it up either the Connecticut River Valley or through parts of New Hampshire. Needless to say, the same effect is really going to apply. What's going to end up happening is Henri is going to weaken considerably, but it's going to do a lot of impacts, and we'll take a look at that now. And looking at Henri right now, you can see that the tropical storm track is pretty much right in this vicinity, right about here, and it's going to be taking a track kind of cutting northwestward, and either ends up in the vicinity of Brattleboro. Some models have it actually hook quite a bit to the left, do a loop-de-loop, and as I just described, and then heading out either into Maine or off the coast of Maine, the Gulf of Maine. But needless to say, it's going to weaken very rapidly, and that's good news because we're going to lose a lot of the wind aspect. So this is really not going to be a big deal. But in the preceding, the sort of first part of the storm, we're going to see a little bit of that downsloping along the western slopes of the Green Mountains, for especially Bennington, a little bit perhaps into Rutland County, although the circulation really slackens considerably once you head further to the north. This is Storm Prediction Center website analysis right now, and you can see where Henri is. It's still just a little bit to the south and east, still off the coast. It has a little ways to go. Anticipating about midday or so for impacts coming inland. And this is the latest National Hurricane Center track. You can see where it's going to be heading, and I'll bring this up just a little bit better as a depression, basically, and it's going to lose a lot of its steam. Some of the model tracks, they're still pretty wide berth, as you can see, so a lot of uncertainty. But my guess, I'm going to follow the European, which takes it and makes a left hook, kind of loops around the lower Hudson Valley or Catskills, and then it goes back out like that. And I think that's the general consensus. This is the intensity forecast, so you can see that Henri is in the process of really losing a lot of steam right now. It's already below hurricane status. It's a strong tropical storm, but it's going to be falling off very, very quickly over the course of the next 12 hours. You can see that in 24 hours' time, it's going to be in tropical depression status. Some of the latest modeling here. This is the Weather Research Forecast model, the WRF, and you can see where Henri comes ashore And this follows the European model consistently, going out over toward the Albany area. We don't have the fill in there for the latest model. This is the new 12Z model run, so this is very, very new. And what you can see here is that it basically hangs a left and kind of spins around a little west of the Berkshires. This is looking at the Namm model, and pretty much the same kind of picture here. It takes a leftward track, heads northwest, and then basically almost due west. And then watch what happens here. It's weakening considerably, does a loop-de-loop, another loop, and even a third loop before it gets released by the upper low that's spinning over the Ohio Valley and off to the south and west. Now eventually some of that rainfall does get into the areas around Vermont, and we'll take a look at the European. It has a much better depiction there. And before we get to the European, this is the Namm model, and you can see the depiction of the heaviest rainfall. Now, keeping an eye on the time, this is valid by about 5 o'clock Sunday evening. And you note that basically the rain has just barely gotten into the Berkshires, southern Green Mountains. So this rainfall, because of this loop-de-loop and this leftward track to the northwest, it's going to spin around, and it's really going to unload most of its precipitation in parts of the southeastern portion of New York State, including a little bit north of New York City, of course Long Island, all of Connecticut, or most of Connecticut, into the Berkshires of Massachusetts, whereas things dried out off to the east of it, and that was to be expected. That's pretty much right in line. But what you can see here is going out past, this would be 21Z, that'd be 5 o'clock on Monday. Some of that is going to make it into Vermont, but right now it's really a southern Green Mountain situation. And let's take a look at the European finally. So this is the European model, and this is kind of a lot of the computer modeling has been following the European. Gee, I wonder why. But it is a continuation of kind of what we've been seeing with that loop, and then out to sea it goes. So if you notice the heaviest rain bands associated with Henri coming ashore here, they get into southern Vermont, kind of back off a little bit right here, and this is tomorrow morning, and then kind of pull away and then return back over the same general areas, with generally the areas of the southern four counties of Vermont, really the southern half, seeing the most threat for heaviest rainfall. So what we're looking at here is rainfall depiction by the European model. Off to the right, this is the 00Z model. That was last night's model analysis variables, and this was the overnight 2 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning variables. So as you see, you can see the heaviest rainfall get into Vermont, and starting to get into above 1.2 inches, and you're seeing that just into the southern greens. And again, this is valid. We're running here about 2 o'clock in the morning, so this is the overnight period, and then continuing during the day tomorrow. It does that loop-de-loop and then returns and then goes back out to sea. And these are the latest indications. This is 0Z, this is 06Z, and you notice the very heaviest portions of the rainfall are going to be roughly in the sort of Bennington, Windham, mostly eastern slopes, and then down into parts of the Berkshires, that upslope portion where the winds will be blowing east, interacting with the terrain, and then back over the Catskills, you can see another maxima. And then north and west of New York City, these areas are going to be affected probably by some thunderstorms as well over the course of the next 36 hours. This is the HRRR forecast at 12Z. A little bit old, but you can kind of get the picture here. It's pretty much the same thing. The heaviest rainfall is going to be across southern parts of the region until it exits out. This is valid during the Monday night period when everything is pretty much pulling away at this point in time. And one last depiction. Here comes the rainfall. This is the national blend of models, all of the American models put together. And you can see where the heaviest precip is. This is valid by Wednesday morning, and you can see that it's the southern Green Mountains, and that's going to be our main threat here, maybe a little bit into our central eastern slopes of the Green Mountains. That's going to be about it. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.